Welcome to Women's Health Matters podcast. I'm Lucy Townsley, your host, a women's health consultant. Please subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. On this podcast, we cover all topics to do with women. So to do with our mental well-being, our nutrition and gut health needs, our movement, our sleeping. We also touch on menopause and perimenopause, very important subject. Also fertility and your cycles. So we cover everything on this podcast. Also, products that we use on our skin, makeup, and our cleansers and moisturizers, and the products that we use around our house. These are all so important. So keep listening to my next amazing guest, and I'm sure you'll get some valuable information from them. Take care. Welcome everyone to this Women's Health podcast, and today I am joined by Ian Claxton, and Ian is a fellow acupuncturist and he's also a swimming coach, and I've just found out now that he's also involved in the lifeboat, which I didn't know, which is pretty cool. So welcome Ian to this podcast, and let us know what you do.
I love your work, and I love where it's going these days. It's a new tact.
And, it is. Yeah, it is.
It's good. I love the podcast as well. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I suppose I've been working in fertility for the last 15 years since moving to Galway. Initially, I was in sport, swimming and triathlon, and I thought I'd come here and set up an acupuncture clinic focusing on kind of rehab and sports injuries. But what happened was when I came, it sort of just morphed into fertility, and women started coming to me from around the place with fertility issues, pregnancy kind of issues, and gynecological issues. And I seemed to kind of fall into that place, and I got a lot of success from it. So yeah, I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm still learning.
That's like all of us. I think we all keep learning away. Okay, so that's a big change from thinking that you're going to set up a sports kind of clinic rehab to, because I know it's something women's health is an area that I specialize in as well, you know, where you've got very, I don't want to say vulnerable isn't the right word, but it's highly emotional area to deal with.
Hugely, yeah. I think being able to listen is an important thing, because I think a lot of the time it starts in the emotional being. There could be a lot of energy stagnant or repressed emotions that kind of can cause, in Chinese medicine, qi stagnation, which can affect different parts of the body. And in Chinese medicine, the blood carries the emotions. So certain qualities of blood, especially during your period, can kind of give a little bit of an understanding of how your body is, or where your body's at in relation to the health or disharmony of the person. So that's where I kind of look at it.
So that would be a question I get asked, and I'm always kind of beating a drum about this. The period is just tell you how healthy you are. So how can women, you know, what advice would you tell them about their periods? Because obviously this is what you're dealing with all the time.
I know, and I think initially when I started working with fertility, when more women started coming, they used to be a little bit uncomfortable talking to a man about all this female stuff. But I think over time, they build, I suppose they build a rapport with me, and they can kind of open up. And now it's normal. I think people are becoming more open to the realization that fertility isn't just a woman thing, it's a man and a woman thing. And you know, yeah, we all have to be working on it together. But with regard to the menstrual cycle, it's so linked to nature, to the, you know, menstruation, mens is the moon, and the moon cycle and the women's cycle pretty much come every 28 days if they're linked. If we were living in nature, the woman's cycle would be linked to the moon. So on the new moon you'd be getting your period, on the full moon you'd be ovulating, and that's what we should be kind of aiming towards a lot of the time. But you know, there's always disharmonies. There's pain, premenstrual pain, which is kind of a little bit of tension, irritability, and then There could be a bit of heavy bleeding, clots in the blood, or very light period, long period, short periods. They're all signs that there's a little bit of disharmony. If there's breast distension, back pain, they're all signals that different organs are under pressure. Yeah, and then see, everybody's different, so we kind of have to treat everybody individually. And then I use acupuncture. I've started working. I'm a herbalist. I'm a herbalist, like yourself. We're herbalists, and I've started using herbs a lot now over the last 3 or 4 years. I think people were very skeptical of Chinese herbs. They think it's like snake medicine, or use animals and stuff. But Chinese medicine is so steeped in history, and the wisdom of the herbs are just come through, and I find them really, really powerful with a lot of my patients now.
Yeah, I agree on that one. The Chinese herbs, the two together work amazingly well together,
Really
actually.
good,
Yeah, I do agree. So tell me more about the moon cycles. How, I'm sure more women will be interested in this, how you sync your period with the moon cycle.
Well, you get out in nature more. I think it's very important to work with nature. If you're, the other thing is, natural light is so much better than kind of, lights from fluorescent light or lights from the computer. You should really have blackout blinds when you're sleeping at night. If you have any light, sometimes that can kind of cause hormonal disruption in the body. So I would definitely try to kind of turn out all the lights when you're sleeping at night, especially for teenage and 20-year-old girls. It's really good to make sure that they're cycling properly. A lot of them are on the pill as well, which is another avenue we need to kind of work on. But yeah, so turning off the light, making sure you have blackout blinds is really important. Then getting out in nature, just keeping an eye on the moon, connecting with the moon, see where it is. The moon moves every 3 days through the zodiac for the whole 28 days. When it's in Scorpio, for example, which governs the womb, that has the highest occurrence of miscarriage. So if you do anything really taxing on that day and you're just in your early stages of pregnancy, you're not highly, but you have a higher chance of miscarrying during those 3 days. So it's kind of good to kind of connect and see where the moon is. You can get these apps on your phone, but you can see if it's in Pisces and you have a headache, then you go, oh yeah, the Pisces governs my head. So if I have a headache, you just kind of connect with it and you kind of go, okay, I'll just work through that, drink more water that day or whatever. And then during Scorpio, when the moon is governing the sex organs, just be more mindful of your womb. So the moon works through your body as well for the whole 28 days.
And when you're treating women, do you bring this into the consultation? Do you bring this awareness to them, or is it?
Yeah, like I have a calendar, and every day I would look at it and go, okay, it's in Libra at the moment, which governs the hips and the upper thighs and lower back. And a lot of the time, I would do a little bit of work on that area. They might know it, but if they've a week back, just say, I'd work on that area, and that would be doubly beneficial for them around those times. So
okay,
yeah.
So your work is based around the moon cycle as well, where they are, regardless of what they're coming, what they're saying to you.
Yeah, and also the moon cycle, and then in Chinese medicine, there's the circadian cycle. Every 2 hours, the energy goes into different organs of the body throughout the day, and I'd work alongside that as well. Between 3 and 7 is the bladder and the kidney time, and in the afternoon between 3 and 7 is really important for drinking loads of water and kind of clearing the body and that kind of stuff. And then during lunchtime, it's kind of it's the small intestine and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd be working on different areas, and then morning time is the stomach and large intestine. But yeah,
it's interesting. I know this myself, but it is really interesting, that circadian rhythm, the way and the sleep is so important to regulate hormones.
Oh yeah, and we don't have to be popping pills all the time. There's only little adjustments in what we do in the environment with ourselves, and then the food we take. We're in the northern hemisphere around here. We're in such a damp climate that we need to be kind of conscious that we can't be drinking loads and loads of milk and kind of greasy foods all the time. Maybe when it's warmer we can, but during kind of autumn, winter, and early spring, I'd be more conscious of eating hearty foods, like root vegetables that are grown under the ground because they soak up a lot of the moisture. And, if you have sinus or loose stools or bloating or even breast extension cysts, polycystic ovaries, they'll all maybe get a little bit more heightened during the worser weather. Worser weather? During the damper
Winter
weather.
weather.
Wet.
Well, we've
Yeah,
wet weather all the time where we
that's
live. It
true.
never stops raining. So again, women with PCOS, that's quite a big issue when you're trying for a baby. What advice or what help do you do for
Yeah,
them?
so PCOS can kind of present in fairly a lot of cases. There's excess hair growth, there's maybe weight gain, water retention, hormone, longer cycles or irregular cycles. um Everybody's different, but I would be looking at um one, a little bit more exercise, a little bit exercise, cut down on the grains, because I think grains cause a little bit more inflammation, and it's not really the grains, it's probably the Roundup that's sprayed on the grains. So if you can get more organic the better, and make sure it's not sprayed with Roundup, because that's just hormone disruptor. It's crazy. A
Mm.
cancer causing hormone disruptor, but it not just causes cancer, it causes a wide variety of autoimmune issues. So I'd cut down the sugars, do some light exercise just to get the blood and the waters moving again. And then there's certain things like well, yeah, they're kind of things. I'd probably give you some herbs if needed, and then acupuncture as well, just to kind of get the chi moving.
Yeah, because it's quite a common issue, PCOS, and I often think sometimes it's misdiagnosed too quickly, from my own experience in my clinic. um, that there's certain markers in gynecological that they go through and they miss. They see one and they go, yeah, you've got PCOS, and sometimes you don't. So I think
Yeah,
sometimes getting a second opinion is always good to do that.
100%. Yeah, and some people have, when you say, "Oh, I have PCOS," it nearly you nearly resign yourself to the fact that you're always going to have it, but actually it's reversible. And Chinese medicine is really powerful at maybe not, yeah, reversing it, pretty much kind of clearing it out of the system, and making sure your body is cycling on. I think uh stuff like endometriosis is a little bit it's more blood stagnation, so that can be a little bit more harder to kind of start the ball rolling.
Okay,
And
so I'm interrupting you. I know what blood stagnation is, but because it's what I do as well. But how would you describe blood stagnation to the listeners?
well, it happens in a various there's a fair few ways to diagnose it, but clots in the blood is definitely one kind of sign. You can get purple skin, your tongue can be a little bit more purple. That's kind of like a couple of the signs. Then there's blood sometimes if you jump up and stand up, you can get that dizzy feeling. That's kind of more of a blood deficiency as well. So I'd be looking at all those signs and symptoms. But thinning the blood is very important, like getting your oils, not just fish oils, but you can get your oils through nuts and seeds as well. um and yeah, blood when you're emotionally stuck, your blood can stick as well. So we need to kind of make the blood flow. So if you have PCOS, a lot of the time it's really important to talk. or not PCOS, endometriosis, talk and let that energy flow, even if it's just going out for a coffee with people, chatting. Girls are really good at it. Men are probably a little bit worse at talking. But if I go into the coffee shop, there's always a group of women chatting, and it's so important to do that. Men are like, go into the coffee shop, get a coffee and run out. Whereas it's important for women to keep talking and letting all their stories out, whatever it is, because that'll help move the blood.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And then you could sync in the moon cycle within that as well by being out in
Yeah,
nature. I think that's a
yeah,
big, and being curious and having fun. Curiosity is very good for that as
yeah. And
well.
there's a huge movement for women at the moment, connecting with the moon, going out and gathering in women's circles. It can be men and women's circles, but it's so good to honor the moon, the full moon and the new moon and that kind of stuff. There's a really, I think there's a nice movement happening at the moment. And it's good if, it doesn't have to be just women. It can be men and women coming together. And it's lovely just to kind of get out in nature in the evening, light a fire and sit around it. It's the way we used to do it, the old ways, and just connecting and relaxing and not having our phone and clicking, taking photos, just sitting and telling stories.
Yeah, it's important. It's kind of a bit of a big shock if you don't have your phone because you're constantly taking pictures or
Yeah,
you're taking a little story of what you're doing. It's mad, isn't it?
exactly. No.
Kind of takes over. So, again, you would be so with some women, obviously they're very lucky, they go on and get pregnant naturally with your help. But what happens with the women that are on that journey through IVF or IUI? How do you help them through that journey?
Okay, yeah. So there's so many. Yeah, everybody's on their own little journey. So, you know, you're on one step. Everybody's kind of, you're nearly, once you get onto that train, it can turn into a roller coaster very, very quickly. So I'm always saying, take your time. Don't make any rash decisions. I think when you go to a fertility clinic, they give you 3 cycles, then you're on the IVF cycle, and it's like, oh my God, you feel so overwhelmed.
So the first cycles that they do, just to say, is the IUI, which is
Yeah, in
the first cycle that women go through.
intrauterine, isn't that intrauterine injections?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you're getting scanned, you're getting injected, you're getting scanned, you're getting Ovutrel, which is used to kind of help ovulate, and then you go home and kind of try yourself naturally.
Yeah.
So that's the first kind of 3 weeks or 3 cycles. And then they kind of go on to the next level and then the next level. But it can be, it's very much about calming, relaxing, connecting with the person, making them as stress free as possible, and then working on their individual issues. Some of them might have low progesterone, or they may have FSH levels elevated, or they may be
That's
low
the
AH.
follicle stimulating hormone, just so they know.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, and then they may have, the anti-Malarian hormone. They might have low, and although that can be very subjective, I think once it gets
That's
into
a
their head.
I'm gonna cut across, sorry, and I'm cutting across you again. That's a test where women, I've seen a lot of women who've gone through that test, the AMH, and oh my God, it can wipe them. It really wipes them
Yeah,
out. It's such a tough test, but as you said, it's not an exact test.
it's not, and if they get a score of 1 or 5, it nearly is so disheartening for them. But it's about their quantity, not their quality of their eggs. So they still have an egg reserve, but they have a lower egg reserve. So I always try to say, don't worry, you still have an egg reserve, and it's just about the quality that we're looking for. And yeah, I think it can be very disheartening for a lot of women with that, with the AMH levels. But saying that, I've had point something, 0.6 or something of an AMH, and then they get pregnant. So I wouldn't really worry too much about those tests. I think it's about working on the whole body, not just on the fertility issue. They may have palpitations, or they may have digestive issues or some other issues in their body, and it's about balancing everything. If they're getting a lot of migraines, for example, if we clear the migraines, usually then that's a liver issue, usually. But if you work on that issue, it'll actually support then the heart, and then which will combine with the womb, and it'll help work. So everything is kind of working together. We're not just treating the fertility problem, we're treating the whole body. And once the whole body is working like an orchestra, then we're going to make some music.
I like that. It's so true.
Yeah, anyway.
It's so true. And so then we have ladies that are pregnant but can suffer quite recurrent miscarriage, and that can be very tough. I've treated lots of women as well who've gone through 3 and 4 miscarriages, and you don't really get much help. No, you do get good help when you get into the system, but if you have to have 3 miscarriages to get into the system, which is quite, it's devastating.
Yeah, recurrent miscarriages are quite devastating, especially the first one is really hard, I think. And then the second one, oh my God, they're going, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong. But a lot of the time, well, there's 3 or 4 reasons why you miscarry, in my opinion. One is chromosomal, where the body just kind of recognizes that there's something wrong and you miscarry naturally. The second one could be hormonal, where it could be a missed miscarriage, or the body's trying to hold on to it, but the baby's heart stops at around 7 or 8 weeks, and that could be low progesterone levels or hormonal issues, something wrong. There could be elevated kind of adrenal or elevated stress hormones can cause the decrease in progesterone, and they're issues that we can actually work on. The other issue could be something to do with mineral deficiency. I find a lot of people with kind of digestive issues like excess thrush or candida, especially vaginal candida or bowel candida. It can cause a deficiency in zinc, because zinc is a mineral that is really important for fertility, for holding a baby in the womb. And when candida leaches out that mineral, and a lot of women that miscarry are deficient in zinc. So eat your pumpkin seeds. That's kind of high in zinc. That's what I would say. And then the last issue is, and I think it's going to be more of an issue over time, is male sperm. So the male sperm is so important for the placenta lining, the placenta. And if you have miscarriages around 12, 10 to 12, 13 weeks, if it's quite a late miscarry, yeah, 10, around 10 to 12 weeks would be I would point to me that it's probably more of a male issue than a female issue. I think late miscarriages, because the sperm, within the sperm, there's part of the sperm that's used in the placental formation, and if that's weak, the placenta will just, it won't bond too well to the lining of the womb.
It's very interesting that you say that, because again, women really blame themselves if they have a miscarriage. They say, whatever comes in, there's so many things that I've heard as awful, actually. And it's, as you said, it not necessarily them that's caused the problem. Yeah.
It's always, I think the whole process it'll make or break a relationship. I think a lot of people, it's great. A lot of men are very supportive, and it builds the strong bond, because it's not just the woman going on this journey alone. The man has to produce only a sperm sample if they're doing the IVF, but it's a very important time for support and doing it together. And if you get through it, it'll strengthen the bond. I see it all the time, I think.
Yeah, no, I do agree. If
Very important.
you have to be in this together, because it is a journey of, yeah, it is a tough journey.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. And,
Mm.
the fear of not being able to have a baby it's so emotional. Especially when you want one and you're craving one, and then you think the time is running out. There's a time where you have to kind of go, okay, we can do this. Just kind of connect, hold it together, and work through it together. Put it in. Yeah, you put it in place, have a chat about it, and then work on it. But it's really important to not make it sterile as well, because having sex doesn't have to be. You have to have enjoyment, and this all can take the enjoyment out of sex, which is not good either.
No, it isn't. I hear that a lot as well. That's something that I would really say to patients, just like, even, women would know when they're on this journey. They become very aware of their bodies and ovulation time and things like that, and ovulation kits, or whatever way they find out. And I'm like, don't tell him because, just don't tell him, and just like jump on him or whatever, whatever works for you. Because it does, you're right, it becomes mechanical and there's
Yeah,
no enjoyment. And it's just like, yeah, we have to do it tonight because it's the time. And it's just, yeah. And part of making a baby is meant to be enjoyment, isn't it?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And having sex is important as well, because a lot of the time, you know, we spent our teens and 20s not trying not to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And then we hit 30 and we go, oh my God, I want to get pregnant. And it's such a small window. There's only like 3 or 4 days in the month where you're at your fertile state. So if we kind of yeah, just kind of enjoy those couple of days, um, and have time without talking about this. Have a date night every week, um, or so, every second week, where you go out and you don't talk about your fertility problems, or don't talk about trying to get pregnant or having a doctor's appointment, all this kind of stuff. Try to go out and just be relax and be together and have the chat.
Mm.
That's so important.
It is important. Yeah. Yeah. And where that, as you said, the sex is an important part in the relationship, because it's that connection between a couple. And if it's mechanical, you're not connecting. The hearts aren't connecting.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
it's very important. And the heart and the womb is so connected.
Mm-hmm.
If your heart is open, your womb will be open.
Yeah.
It's kind of the conception vessel. And if you have a connection with your womb from your heart, the womb just opens up and it's more receptive.
And you see, then you have the other side, because if you've gone through this journey of trying for a few years naturally, and then you're trying through IUI and it hasn't worked, and then you're on the IVF journey, you become protective of your heart, because you don't want it to get hurt, because it does get hurt, in that wait, that 2-week wait, and your period comes, or, you just, some women know, some women don't know that they're pregnant at that point. It's very difficult
Oh, it's
to
huge.
keep that heart open.
Yeah, and even you go into it and you have all your hopes up,
Mm.
and then they get dashed, and oh my God, your heart breaks, when they tell you, or you hear the news. And it's just that it's that kind of, you don't give up. It's that you have to try and be as hopeful as possible, but not, I don't know, you just have to give yourself up to what's happening and just be as hopeful as possible. It's a hard one, but then you don't want to be too hopeful, or else you'll just get your heart crushed.
I know. You need to open. It's such a fine line, that
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. And that's when you need the support, I suppose, as well, because it's a whole process, and that happens as well all the way through pregnancy. Once you get pregnant, then you're that I suppose getting pregnant is only one step for the whole
Yeah.
journey through getting pregnant, and then having a family, and there's all these other worries then down the line. You're going for the first 7-12 weeks, you're worrying about miscarriage, then you're hoping the 20-week scan is going to be okay, and then you're worrying about the labor, and hopefully it'll go fine, and then you have a baby, and then you're going, oh my God, what do I do with this?
I know. Thanks.
And
This is what
then,
I really wanted now. How do I mind the baby?
yeah, and I suppose it's only one, getting pregnant is only one little step, and sometimes it has to be a big hurdle. But once you get that step, then you have to think about, the next part of your life. So if if it's hard, but you have to take them as little steps all the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always think when I'm helping women, through that first 12 weeks, because they're seeing you weekly, but then then I would lengthen out a little bit my treatments,
Yeah.
but then that 12 to 20 weeks, because often there's no show of pregnancy. You look normal, you are going around, but it's such a tough time, that 12 to 20 week time.
Yes.
So
And then after 20 weeks, it's like, oh my God, they're like
yeah.
grown. And then there's only like a couple of, well, there's another 20 weeks, but it just flies then.
Yeah, it does fly. Yeah, and you're right. And the fear of giving birth and things like that. And often that fear can be a fear that stops you getting pregnant as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that.
Yeah.
That's come up in my clinic as well. That fear of delivering a baby.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's I'm a man, so I can't, but it's the most I've been with um my ex-partner with 2 home births as well. And then we've had 2 hospital births. Um, so the home births are just so beautiful. There's something magical about it as well. There's this. I was thinking my father passed away around 5, 6 years ago, and it was after I've had all my kids, but it was I could feel when my father passed away, there was that energy, that beautiful.
You disappeared on us. Sorry, Ian. You were telling us about this beautiful energy from your father.
Oh, yes, there's so many people. Sorry, there was another person calling. Yeah, so there was that energy of death and birth. They're very so closely related. I had that. I could feel the energy during birth and death. There's just it's a very special and sacred energy. But I think women during the labor have been programmed to think how they've heard all the worst stories. Whereas sometimes if you can embrace the intensity and then relax the intensity, the waves of it, and go with it, and the man should be probably supporting as much as possible. Um, there is that kind of empowerment that you can actually do this, and then when you do it, it's magical. Like it's inspiring, and as a man seeing it, it's so special.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, actually, because obviously you're doing the whole labor thing from a man's point of view. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember when my babies were born, handing them to, giving them over to the dad to hold or whatever, and just the emotion that's there.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you've
pretty.
connected the whole 9 months previous, and the dad doesn't really connect until you've given birth. Really, you connect, you touch the tummy and stuff like that, but to feel it, you felt it for the 9 months of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so nice to have that kind of connection, and even to kind of, if you get a chance to cut the cord and that kind of stuff. I'd always wait till the pulsing finishes after cutting the cord. But yeah, there's a specialness there as well.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I never thought of it that way. I suppose because I'm in a different mindset to
Oh
the
yeah,
dad,
you're definitely,
getting given the baby for the first time. Yeah,
yeah, and it's a very special moment. But
yeah,
yeah,
it is a
yeah,
special moment. Oh, that's a good note to leave this on. You've been really amazing, really informative, because it's an area where some women don't look for help. And I think it's really, you can even just a talk, it's so powerful just to talk about what's going on. It's a really hidden subject. It's a bit like menopause or your period. No one talks about those things. They just get on with it. And it shouldn't be, as you said, it shouldn't be painful. It should just come every 28 days, depending on the cycle. Some women are a little bit longer and a little bit shorter. but the moon cycle is a really great way of looking at it. Yeah, and then the same thing, like trying for the baby should be fun and not stressful. And pregnancy the same way. And I know women go through difficulties, but that's what we're here for, is to support them on that
I think
journey.
the majority of people have a nice kind of relaxing pregnancy. So
Yeah,
that's
most
what we
do.
kind of aim towards.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite actually thing is treating pregnant women. It's one of my favorite areas. Yeah.
Well, we have to get them there. We'll get them.
I
Well,
know.
most people do, but we'll get them there. And it's very important. We can help. That's the main thing.
Exactly. So thanks for listening, everyone. I will put Ian's details down in the show notes so you can contact him if you need to, or for any fertility issues. Be great. And thank you for being the most amazing guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Look forward to speaking again.